Om. 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 Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasyaadilakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunasahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayana Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara Vande Guru Parampara Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudiraye. So we said we'll repeat, we'll do the verse number 10 again. So what happens to a jnani after his death? If the Jivan Mukta does not take another birth, where does he or she go then? Does a jnani become permanently lodged somewhere? This question is based, of course, on the assumption that if the Jivan Mukta is not subject to rebirth, he or she must be somewhere else. Therefore, is there eternal imprisonment or internment of some kind after death? If not, what is it that happens to the jnani? In response to this question, Krishna says, that person becomes myself. Saha mam eti. The jiva is gone. All that remains is Ishvara. Brahman alone is there. Brahman being Ishvara, which is everything. Therefore, there is no jiva. And when there is no jiva, there is only Ishvara. Only when the jiva cannot gain identity with Ishvara in terms of knowing they are one and the same, there are two seemingly different entities, Ishvara and Jiva. Here, the use of the word eti, gains, must be clearly understood. If it is used in its usual sense, gaining identity with Ishvara would mean that the Jiva is like an amoeba ingested by Ishvara. But if the Jiva is really a false entity and one understands the nature of oneself, then there is no Jiva at all. No individual separate from Ishvara, and all that is there is Ishvara. The problem is one of separation, and there is no separation in fact. All that is there is Ishvara. It is not that Ishvara is someone who is located somewhere and the Jivan Mukta joins him there. Gaining Brahman is strictly in terms of knowledge. Krishna makes use of Arjuna's question, how could you have given this knowledge to Vivaswan in the beginning to reveal the nature of Atma? The cause of grief and how can one cross over it is the subject matter of the Gita. Although Krishna discusses many topics, he unfolds the subject matter in one continuous flow. Here, having answered Arjuna's most recent question, Krishna once again picks up the thread. You grieve for those who should not be grieved for. Ashocyan anvashochastvam, and continues. Vitaragabhaya krodha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa bhuta madbhavamagataha. Vita raga bhaya krodhaha, free from craving, fear and anger. Manmayaha, totally resolved in me. Mam upashritaha, taking refuge in me. Jnana tapasa, by the discipline of knowledge. Putaha, purified. Bahavaha, many. Madbhavam, my nature. Agataha, have come back. Vita raga bhaya krodhaha manmayaha mam upashritaha jnana tapasa putaha bahavaha madbhavam agataha. Free from craving, fear and anger, totally resolved in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the discipline of knowledge, many have come back to my nature. We have seen that the one who knows Krishna in reality knows that there is no real birth, janma, or action, karma, for the person. This is a very powerful statement, no? Very good to contemplate on. We have seen that the one who knows Krishna in reality knows that there is no real birth, janma, or action, karma, for the person. And if there is no real janma or karma, then who is that person? Here, the person cannot be Mr. Krishna, who is born at a given time and place. So too for everyone, he or she can only be Paramatma. Thus, Krishna says, the one who knows this reaches me.
Beautiful. If you know Krishna,
Right.
then nothing to be known. Wonderful.
Yeah, knowing Krishna in reality. Because there is only one. There is only that Advaita there. There cannot be another. There's no birth. The only thing that is that. And that is all pervading, omniscient, all knowledge. It is
So
that
if you know this verse, you
Huh.
know everything.
Right.
So good.
That is why Nana had said when Dr. Renu asked, do we have to read everything or just can we just hold on to one verse? And he said, yeah, it's very good if you can hold on to just one verse and know it in depth. That itself is enough.
And I think this verse is enough. If you understand Krishna as a real person, who he is, no need to understand whole Bhagavad Gita also. So wonderful.
But then the reason why we require the whole Bhagavad Gita is because we are so multifaceted.
That is
We're
what.
so complicated. We have so many samskaras and vasanas. We don't know which one will pull us down. So in order
therefore they are written, no?
Yeah.
They are written, no? Once your mind becomes clean, then only,
Correct.
see, purified by the discipline of knowledge. That condition is there.
Correct.
For that we did all this.
Yeah.
Good. Wonderful.
Because this path is like Shurasya Dhara Nihita Duratyaya. It is like it is like walking on a razor edge. So you don't know when you will slip and fall. This is the middle path. So that is why you need all these struts, all this the scaffolding of the rest of the knowledge. So that is why being in knowledge is so very important. So whenever we celebrate our birthdays, we actually have to come to this and say we are actually ajaha, we are not born. But that we are born into the jiva, at least we recognize the worth of this human life to get back to that state of being, to realize that we are nothing but Paramatma.
Therefore, we have to give importance to the birth, because we are born in this human body to think that, otherwise it would not have been, no.
Because I always used to wonder, why does Guruji celebrate birthdays,
That is what.
anniversaries, when we are actually not born? I mean, what is the reason? But then it is this to just wake you up to the fact that, hey, listen, you are much greater than what you are. You have a birth for a reason, and maybe fulfill that. You must get that sarthakata of having been born as a human being.
Because of this birth only.
Every birthday, you are going closer to the grave. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So time that way is running out. You have to wake up and be aware of this fact that this birth is so precious, and make the most of it.
And this celebration is needed because with this body only we can reach Krishna. You see, otherwise it's not possible without any other.
And another beautiful significance, Chayana would always, on his Svadhyaya sessions, he would insist on a garland. And I was wondering, there must be some significance to the garland. Garland is circular. It is purna. It is something that signifies purnatva. So when you garland someone, you're actually awakening him and telling him, hey, you are purnam. You're, like it's that the purna mantra, purnamidam, purnamadam, purnat,
purnamadachyate, purnasya purnamadaya,
yeah,
purnameva vashishyate.
Because in no other tradition is this garlanding there. And all garlands are circular in shape.
And I think I read one yesterday only, I think, during the third chapter, I think. We put the hara, means jaha tum har gaye, means when you surrender, then you become the purna. हार के पूर्णता होना है, इसलिए हार डालना है. In Hindi it was so good, it was simile.
See, different angles to the same gesture, no? Different angles. Very nice. To know Krishna in this way is to know oneself. Ishvara cannot be understood by one who is a jiva, an individual, who does not know the identity between oneself and Ishvara. The limited individual is not going to know that which is all-knowing, omniscient. Even to spell the word omniscient is a problem. Therefore, the most that can be said is that Ishvara's knowledge is not limited. All-knowingness, sarvajñatva, can never be understood by an alpajña, one with limited knowledge. But sarvajñatva is only in relation to alpajñatva. Both limited knowledge and all knowledge are adjuncts, upadhis with reference to each other. The division between them being due to upadhi alone. Krishna's statement, only the one who knows the Paramatma reaches me, is to be understood in terms of the Paramatma not being separate from oneself. Krishna had said this before and is merely confirming it here before picking up the topic of sorrow. This knowledge had been around since the beginning. Krishna tells Arjuna, and people had always been reaching him in this manner, by knowing. There was nothing new about it. Here again, Krishna says that any number of people have reached him. Bahavaha madbhavam agataha. And why is it that everyone does not reach him? There is no difficulty involved in reaching him. But first, one has to recognize that he must be reached, that mumukshutvam should come. And having recognized this, how is one going to reach him if one is driven by one's craving, fears, and anger? In fact, there is nothing to reach because one is already Paramatma. The question, therefore, is how far one's discerning power extends and what is it that one is choosing. In this verse, the people for whom the craving, fears, and anger have gone away, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodhaha, are described as those who have reached him in terms of knowledge. The nature of fear. We have seen that raga is the craving for objects, and that once raga comes, dvesha in the form of dislike and avoidance is also there. These two always go together, and being powerful are binding in nature. Fear, bhaya, then becomes inevitable because there is always some apprehension with reference to one's ragas and dveshas. Every raga is fraught with fear of the undesirable unknown. This is all that a binding desire or like is about. When there is a binding raga dvesha, such as this must happen for me, that is raga, this must not happen for me, dvesha, how can there be absence of fear? There is always the fear of things not happening according to one's expectations, because raga implies expectation. And whenever there is expectation, there is a possibility of it not being fulfilled. And when this happens, there is a sense of failure. Fear of failure will always be there because one is not omniscient. That things do not always go our way is very clear to us. What we need to understand, therefore, is that fear of the undesirable unknown will be there as long as we are driven by our ragas and dveshas.
Hey, Gurudev, I used to think fear means, failure. Fear means I used to think of darkness and animals and all that. It's fear of failure. Thank you so much.
Fear of failure, in fact, is one of the biggest fears we have. That is why we have this, fear of the stage fright. Why? Because you have this thing that what will others think if I fail to deliver what I'm supposed to do. So fear of failure actually looms large with every raga. Every raga comes with a little tail with it. That, of course, raga and dvesha come together as a pair. They are like Siamese twins, so to say. And then there is also a tail. Because if what I want does not happen, then there is that fear. That fear that, Arey, what will happen if I don't get what I want?
And
then,
fear also comes when you feel you are separate.
That is true.
You see, when you feel that you are separate from the universal God or anything, then fear starts. That ego has to go. Then only, in Sudarshan Kriya, we do that at the last lap. So that whatever the kalmashas within us has to be thrown out, and then that meditation happens, then you are one with the God. That might be for a small short period, but that has to increase. See?
That is why here he says, Swamiji says, fear of failure will always be there because one is not omniscient. Because you consider yourself, because there is the other, as long as there is the other, there is no omniscience, right? Omniscience is oneness, is being one, just one. Advaita is omniscience. Omniscience omniscience is all knowing. So because you're not all knowing, there is always that lurking fear. So there are two aspects to fear. One is that, like you said, that the sense of separation, the feeling of the other, me and the other. That is one. And second is not that you're not all knowing. You're alpajnaha. You're with limited knowledge. So you don't know what is there in that all-knowing space, in that omniscience. Therefore, there is the fear. That things do not always go our way is very clear to us. We need to understand, therefore, is that fear of the undesirable unknown will be there as long as we are driven by our ragas and dveshas. So the solution here is to let the hold of the raga dveshas loosen up. We should not get bound by them. Let what happens. I'm just going to do what is to be done, like a karma yogi. I will do what is to be done to the best of my ability, and whatever the consequence of that action, I will take as prasada. Then this fear of whether what I want will happen or not will not bind you, will not hover over your actions.
Yeah, because abhayam, they call it abhayam. Children don't have bhaya, you see. We have to be that way. Completely dependent on mother. That's it. He has no fear at all. So that is what upasritaha. We have to be only ashrita with the highest one. Nirashir. Once we start that I am different and the others, then all this fear, raga, dvesha, this, everything will start. That is what knowingness, knowledge. Once you know that you are that, then there is no fear, there is no ashraya needed. Nirashir, nirmama, nirahankara, all that qualities will come. Adveshta, kshama, kshami, all this. Automatic. See, those are the automatic. So we have to be that. As a sanyama, we do it.
Right. Here, what is talked of is fear of failure. But then in the Taittiriya Upanishad, I think, and Gurudev also mentions that in Ashtavakra Gita, fear should be like salt. That is the reason why the cosmos is actually going in the way it is. The whole cycle is because of that little fear. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is mentioned, Bhishma Vata Pavate, Bhisho Deti Suryaha. That is, it is because of fear that the sun actually shines. It's because of that little fear that the planets go around the sun. Basically, they've given it the term fear, but it is ingrained in the cosmic cycle. And even for us to live a life of dharma, you have to have that little fear that what will happen if I do adharma. So that fear is, that little bit of fear should be there as our guiding principle to should I say, sustain life. Otherwise, you will put your finger in fire. Because you have the fear that your finger will burn, you will not put your finger in fire. And that is what you will teach a child. A child, like you rightly said, has no fear, as abhayam. But you will train the child, don't put your finger in the socket, or don't put your finger in the fire. And once that knowledge comes, then that is life sustaining. So a little bit of fear, it is not fear of failure there. It is not that which comes with raga and dvesha. So that little fear is required to sustain life. Now, I just thought I should maybe this came to me, so I thought I'll just share it here, so that we being fearless totally is in the sense that you don't get bound by rag with respect to raga and dvesha, but that little element of fear is actually ingrained in cosmos, in the creation. The nature of anger. Just as raga dveshas are fraught with fear, they are also fraught with anger, krodha. If a raga is not fulfilled, one's desire, kama, turns into anger against whatever is preventing the desire from being fulfilled. If the obstacle is another person, someone who is standing between you and what you want to accomplish, then your kama turns into krodha. If a binding kama is not there, there is no krodha. But if you think a, um, a certain thing must happen and your life will be incomplete if it does not, you cannot avoid anger because your raga is binding. In the wake of the obstruction that is preventing you from fulfilling your raga, there cannot but be anger when your raga is binding. The kama itself turns into anger. Thus, krodha is also there when one's life is controlled by raga dveshas. Whereas, when one lives a life of karma yoga, the raga dveshas are neutralized. By paying attention to his or her raga dveshas with the right attitude, a person becomes vita raga bhaya krodha, meaning one who is relatively free from desire, fear, and anger. These are the people Krishna is discussing here when he says, they become one with me. Manmayaha bhavanti. These are the people who have the vision of Ishvara as essentially non-separate from the jiva. You know, here I'm reminded of Chayana's example with respect to karma, how karma turns into krodha. If you remember, he'd given the example of a teenager who already has a mobile phone, but there is a new model that comes into the market and one of his friends has it. And then he goes on and on thinking about it. He does a lot of research on it. So it is that dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayat. So he's going on thinking about it. It comes as a thought, new phone, new iPhone. And then that thought becomes an obsession. He goes on thinking and thinking about it, does a lot of research on the net, and then that becomes, it develops into a kama, a desire. I want to possess it. And then he goes to his father and says, Father, I want a new iPhone. I want this thing. So he presents it nicely, very nicely, humbly. He goes to his father. But of course, the father says, you already have a phone. What is the need for you to have another phone just because it's a new model? And then immediately, because the father is obstructing his fulfillment of desire, the kama, he becomes angry. And then he kicks up a rout and then he bangs the doors and the very father who he should be respectful towards becomes an object of his anger. So how the karma becomes converts into krodha. So this is just an example, but this happens every now and then. Every time we are dealing with people, objects, and situations outside, unless we are aware, the filter of karma, the raga and dveshas, how they bind us. So therefore, it is with total awareness that we need to live our life. And when you are vita raga bhaya, so if we take care of our raga and dvesha, automatically we are taking care of bhaya and krodha. So it is like pulling one leg of a chair. The whole chair will come. So we need focus only on raga and dveshas. Automatically the krodha will come down, bhaya will come down. The vision of non-difference between Ishvara and Jiva. There is no
Think,
real difference. Yeah.
Brahmanaji, I thought to mention in 18th chapter, they told Kama, Krodha, one more thing. But ultimately, he says only Kama is
Right.
needed to be. So that's what you also concluded now, just now.
Yeah, karma comes along with its dvesha also, because it's not usually one. No.
Yes.
When you have the desire, you also have the desire of not wanting. They come in pairs, raga dveshas. Yeah, I know that is what we need to look at. That is the whole purpose of karma yoga, is to neutralize our ragas and dveshas. Because see, because we are born of Prakriti, and because we have this backload of samskaras that we are born with from the previous lifetimes, we of course have likes and dislikes that is beyond our control, but being aware of them and then not being bound by them. It's all right. You can have a preference for having maybe tea or coffee. I'm just giving an example. But then getting bound by the tea and coffee, if I don't have tea in the morning, I'm going not to have a good day. So you're so bound by that cup of tea. If I don't have a sweet after I eat my lunch, that becomes a binding desire. Does not matter. If we can release that hold of that desire, then we will rise above ragas and dveshas. This is only with respect to eating and drinking. We have so many other raga dveshas with respect to how we want people to, behave with us. The biggest raga is for us to protect our ego. We don't want our ego to be hurt in any way. Anyone says the slightest thing to hurt us, that's it. Our anger comes up. So at every level of our existence, be it at the body, mind, intellect, and ego, we need to be a little cautious about not getting bound. It's okay. And that's why with respect to the ego, the Buddha's story is so very beautiful, that we teach even children in the art excel. When we tell them laugh and let go, we tell them about the Buddha's story where he is hurled insults by that merchant's friend who goes to, to meet Buddha. And then he says, and he gives him the example of the beggar who goes to seek alms, and he refuses to take the alms that lady of the house is giving. Who does that food remain with? It's such a simple example, but so profound if we can just apply it in our own lives. The problem is we take all that people say and we apply it to ourselves, and therefore we get upset and hurt, and the ego gets.
Can you please tell the story, please?
Yeah. This story is about a merchant who is a devout devotee of Buddha, and he wants his friend also to go and meet Buddha. This friend isn't like an atheist. He does not believe in all these enlightened masters and all. So he says, no, I don't want to come. But then the merchant says, no, come, just come and be in his presence. It's wonderful. It's very beautiful. So this friend goes, and then because he's in a very negative mode, he's a non-believer. He hurls a lot of insults at Buddha in the whole gathering in front of everyone. Buddha, as compassionate as he is not disturbed at all, not perturbed at all. So this merchant's friend is very surprised. But the merchant, because out of compassion for his friend, he tells him, see, you don't know what you have done. You've committed such a great sin. You have hurled so many insults at such a enlightened person. So please come and beg pardon, seek apologies. So the next day, somehow the friend gets convinced and he goes. When he goes to Buddha and he says, I'm sorry, I said all those harsh words, which I should not have said in front of everyone. Then Buddha says, but you are not the same person that said it yesterday. And he just smiles. He says, but you're a different person. And then Buddha tells him about the story of the beggar and the lady of the house. He says, supposing a beggar goes begging from one house to another, and the lady of the house comes with an offering of, say, rice, and then the beggar refuses to take the rice from the lady. Who does the rice stay with? It, of course, stays with the lady of the house. It doesn't go to the beggar. So, similarly, what all the insults that you had hurled yesterday, I did not receive any of them. I did not take any of them. So who does all those insults remain with? It remains with you. I have not taken any of them. Similarly, if we can apply this beautiful, profound knowledge when people are kind of talking harshly with us or humiliating us, so-called humiliating us, or so we think. If we can be in that space of that beggar who is not taking whatever the other person is saying, you will be nischala. Your mind is not perturbed at all. The problem is we take everything. We take everything that people are saying, and then we apply it to us, and then we start getting upset.
As Guruji says, we are very eager to collect the garbage.
Yeah, and then we get upset, we get angry, we can't accept the other person, and we become a football of that person's opinion.
So good.
Someone calls you idiot, everybody in the group will turn, because everyone deep down thinks he's an idiot. or so. But if you think you're not an idiot, of course you will not turn around. So what I'm saying is such a simple, beautiful story. It's easier said than done. It's nice as a story, but we need to apply it at every situation.
And one more thing, Brahmaraji. He said, you are not the same person, because all those anger, whatever he had, he came and surrendered to him. So he became free of it. So he says, you are not the same person.
Right.
So that completes the story. So we have to, even if we have that anger or anything, it is better to surrender, then we become a different person. Oh, good.
And like Gurudev says, it's okay if you've gotten angry. You don't need to punish yourself and feel guilty and all that. It's okay. It just came and it went. Don't be angry at being angry. First we're angry at the other person, and then we're angry with ourselves. So we continue this anger cycle. So it's okay, just move on. But the fact that you've realized is important.
Yeah. One more lesson over here, everything is changing. Like the water in the river, it's not the same. everything is changing.
Because so often when you're on this path and there are people, of course, at home and everywhere else, maybe mostly at home, you get hauled up. You say, oh, you're doing so much of sadhana, you're doing so many things, you're reading the Bhagavad Gita, and still you're getting angry. Doesn't matter. Come on. It's not like what you're doing is wasteful. No. So there are sometimes you may, as sadhaks, we might need to face these comments as such, but it's okay. It's because of prakriti that whatever has happened. Maybe that moment you were that avarana of avidya was there, you were not aware, and therefore you did what you did. Rather than get stuck with that and then say, oh, I'm not even progressing, what is happening to me? Just let go. That laugh and let go is, but of course, learn from that. And with that viveka, with that and here I think the importance of the food we're eating will help, because if you remember, I think in Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga and the Shraddhatraya, and also the 18th chapter, when Krishna talks about how food affects us. Rajo Ragatmakam. So from Rajas comes Raga and Raga and Kama and Krodha and everything. So if we can look at if we're constantly getting angry or getting angry often or having a lot of desires, then it's important for us to look into what we're eating. So if we can reduce all those foods that are increasing Rajas in us, increase sattvic foods, then automatically it will come to a balance.
Yeah. I was just on the lighter note when I had just visited this time to my brother's place, and he makes fun of my being with Guruji, or it's always a fun. So this time he was telling, now we are reading so much and this and that, you'll be wearing saffron clothes. But I think because I keep arguing with him, he says, there will be a trishul in your hat.
Yeah.
Hari Om, with respect to food, I just would like to mention, even in sattvic food, we need to limit the quantity as well. You know, yukta hara vihar, that is so appropriate. I have been experimenting on my own self. I mean, you just need enough, really enough food just for survival. The moment you be conscious, avadhanata happens, then that, you know, that attachment with food and the relation with body also becomes so beautiful. You eat only when it is required, and that also just the sufficient. You are not having that hankering that I need this, I need that, I need more of this, I need more of that, then only I'll be happy. That is going, I mean, that is completely going away. The moment you even be cautious about the quantity of the food you eat, even the sattvic food.
Beautiful.
Nice, very nice, Belaji. I agree.
Yeah.
That
And coming
time,
from Bela,
that time
Bela is
we remember the fasting. The fasting will help you to know how much food you need. You know, the quantity. Therefore, regularly on Ekadashi day or something, if you fast, you will understand the quantity needed and you will become very this sattvic.
and I think Madhuri ji had once shared that in some course they were asked to eat one apple for half an hour, and then they could sustain for the next couple of hours without feeling hungry. So actually this hunger and requiring to eat is also a concept in our mind. So, like Bela very rightly pointed out, and coming from Bela, who loves to feed, she's such a lovely, um, she's a wonderful cook. She loves to cook and she loves to feed people. She, coming from her, is such a wonderful realization that what the amount of food we eat is also very, very important. Apart from the quality, the quantity is also equally important.
And I was thinking it is just apt for me. That lesson
Also for
should
you,
be.
Nal,
No,
of course.
but eating in moderation and not thinking about it. But
Mm,
I need to follow that.
yeah. And Mrinal is
Even
also
me
a
too.
superlative cook. Huh?
Me too. I'm also sometimes binge on certain kind of foods.
Mm,
Really need to discipline myself.
Jai Gurudev, one more thing, they say when you feel hungry, you should allow that hunger to be there for a few minutes so that
mm.
all the ama in the body, all the toxins, they get burnt. What I'm doing, immediately when you feel hungry, I'm just attacking on food. That's not correct, actually. Become aware and I have to change myself.
That's what even Rajima says. Thank you, Malti ji, for bringing it up. She says that is a kind of tapas. When you are feeling, when you're sitting and there is some pain, she gives this example. If there's some pain, we immediately want to shift our position into something of comfort. That is one example. Second is hunger, thirst. When you're thirsty, you immediately want to reach out and drink water. She says, stay with that feeling of thirst for some time. That itself becomes tapas. Stay with that. Same thing. Even in events and situations around in relationships, you want to immediately correct it. Doesn't matter. Let that discomfort stay for a while. Stay with it, and then go about dealing with it. Same thing with hunger, like you rightly pointed out. When you're hungry, let that hunger develop a little bit. Stay with it a while and then satiate it. Hurry to
Here,
satiate.
I would suggest that you better consult Ayurveda doctor before you take such steps, because it could be damaging. Because if you are Pitta Prakriti, you are not supposed to fast completely or keep your stomach empty. That is really very damaging. And when and how it has to be done under guidance. Maybe
No,
for some time.
here I want to mention small thing. What Brahmaraji is saying that give that some moments to get that feeling of completely thirst or complete hunger. That period is very small. It's means definitely you need to take care of pitta, but what happens, it is the mind is set for that kind of thing. कि उतना घंटा हो गया तो भूख लग गया. It is more in the mind than in the stomach. We really need to ponder over it. Give little few moments, as Brahmaraji said. Feel that hunger really from the stomach, not in the mind. Mind is very tricky and very chalak, it tricks you unnecessarily. The pitta bile is generated again and again due to your mindset. Gurudev also somewhere he has said ki 3 time khana khana, 4 time khana khana. It is the demand of your mind, not your stomach every time. So we really, and as sadhaks, as we are progressing on this path, this point is to be pondered over, because this is the kind of vasana we have experienced. The sleep, the sex, and the food is for millions of years. So to break down that, these little bit precious moments of feeling the thirst and hunger, maybe very little time, depending on our age and all our other aspects. But you need to go through that. That is the tapasya, and then have the food. See, the taste of the food will be very, very, very different. Then it becomes like prasada and it gets immediately absorbed into the system. And that burning of ama happens. That is also very, very crucial and important. that cleanses the whole system naturally, automatically. Jai Gurudev.
Yeah.
If not the food on the plate, at least food for thought.
Yeah. The self is Paramatma. Or did I start from here? The vision of non-difference between Ishvara and Jiva. There is no real difference between Jiva and Ishvara. Any seeming difference being brought about by Upadhi alone and therefore Mithya. Since this difference is Mithya, non-difference is Satya, which is all that counts. This vision of non-difference, Abheda Buddhi, the vision of the identity of Jiveshwara reflected in the statement, you are that, Tat Tvam Asi, is made clear by further analysis, Manana, and contemplation, Nididhyasana. Those people in whom this vision is clear are referred to in this verse as Mamupashritaha, those who have totally resolved into Parameshwara alone. For them, there is no longer the mistaken notion that the Jiva is separate from Parameshwara. The self is Paramatma, the one who has no doubt whatsoever with reference to this particular vision is called Puta, meaning Shuddha, absolutely pure. In such people, there is not even a dash of impurity because the self, being Paramatma, is always pure. The self is not rendered pure, it is pure. If the self were something that had to be rendered pure, some impurity would always be there. And how do these people become pure? By the purifying fire of knowledge. Jnana tapasa. Knowledge is the means, the sadhana. Tapasa here means by the fire of knowledge. By the discipline of knowledge, these people become pure. And how does one become pure by knowledge? The knowledge is that the self has never performed any action and therefore it is not guilty of any action. Nor is it subject to any hurt because it is not and never was an object of anyone else's action. Since the self Atma is neither the doer of action nor the object of action, it is always Nitya Shuddha, eternally pure. The people being discussed in this verse were already Vita Raga Bhaya Krodhas. They already have the necessary preparedness of mind, the Antahkarana Shuddhi, through Karma Yoga. It should be noted, however, that this Antahkarana Shuddhi can never be absolute. There is always some Ashuddhi in the form of Raga Dveshas. This is to say, whatever Antahkarana Shuddhi that one gains through Karma Yoga is always relative. Absolute Shuddhi is never achieved but can only be understood because Atma is absolutely Shuddha always. Whereas relative Shuddhi, Antahkarana Shuddhi, is something that is accomplished in the mind. Relative and absolute Shuddhi. Relative Shuddhi is a process of growth, a process of maturity, wherein a life of alertness, discipline, commitment, and prayer is involved. Such a life is a life of purification, and being a process, it takes a certain length of time. Absolute Shuddhi cannot be a process of purification because the impure can never become pure by any amount of purifying, no matter what the process is. The self, which is absolutely Shuddha, is already pure. Purity means freedom from raga, dveshas, punya, papa, freedom from everything, in fact. This purity is the nature of Atma, Atma being nirguna, free of all attributes, akarta, free from doership, and so on. And those who know this are also pure, putas, meaning that they have understood the fact that as Atma, they are eternally pure. They are Madbhavam Agatah, as Krishna puts it, meaning they have come back to me. They have come back to be me. This coming back of Bahavaha, so many jivas, is to be understood in terms of the identity between jiva and Ishvara. It is not that all these jivas have come to Ishvara and are sitting upon him, nor has he collected them all to him so that they have become an integral part of his heart or his being. This particular knowledge reveals the fact that the jiva is Ishvara. Those who know this fact are called jiva jnana nishtas, because not only have they gained the knowledge, but they are well established in it. Reaching Bhagavan is not dependent upon any tapas other than knowledge. That's to say, purified by discipline, tapasa putaha is not enough. The word jnana has to be added because there are other forms of tapas. The pursuit of knowledge is the primary tapas. The word tapas refers to any spiritual or religious discipline. For example, a person who chants the Gayatri mantra for 6 hours is said to be doing religious tapas. A person who observes silence for a length of time is also doing tapas, providing, of course, he or she is doing it for religious purposes as a mental prayer, for example. However, to keep quiet purely out of consideration for others is entirely different. It is not tapas. What does this mean? Keeping quiet purely out of consideration for others. Maybe, I don't know whether this is what it means, is supposing you are upset with someone and you say, I'm not going to talk for a while. Is that what it means here? Because you're not speaking, but there's a lot of speaking happening on in your mind. But whereas when you're doing it out of religious purposes as a mental prayer, you're actually observing silence, not just verbally, but also in the mind, like what we do.
I think it is reacting.
Yeah.
Anybody is talking and we just want to don't answer it.
Yeah.
That is what, as you said it.
Or maybe in the place where you are not supposed to be talking for their sake, just to follow rule. Maybe in the hospital or anywhere.
Correct.
In the class, if you're not
Correct.
talking.
Right. So all this comes under purely keeping silence, just for the sake of being silent, but it is not really a tapas there. Tapas is deeper, where you're it is not just verbal silence, but you're also silencing your mind, because it's a mental prayer. You're doing it for a religious purpose as a mental.
That is advanced course.
Yeah. When a person is performing, well, in an advanced course, yes, but you can also do, there are people who observe Mauna regularly on every Monday or whatever Tuesday. They pick up a day of the week, and that is also a tapas. Like I think Mahatma Gandhi used to observe silence for a whole day, one day of a week, every day of a week. So that also becomes tapas. It is not just when we do advanced course, no? So we can also consider that as silence. When a person is performing a spiritual discipline like contemplation or studying the Shastras, it is tapas. Swadhyaya, study of the Shastra, is considered to be a great tapas. Therefore, those who are committed to listening to the Shastra, Shravana, and to self-enquiry, Vichara, are doing tapas. This was the paragraph I wanted to kind of get back to yesterday. So we should actually feel very grateful that we're all part of this, because what we're doing is actually a great tapas. Swadhyaya itself is a great tapas. And although there are many other forms of tapas, to become established in this knowledge requires only jnana tapas. The pursuit of knowledge is the tapas. The word jnana is prefixed to tapas to show that jnana nishta does not depend upon any other tapas. This is because moksha is not anything other than being established in this knowledge. There is no other moksha. For moksha, you require knowledge, and for knowledge, you do not require anything else except vichara, inquiry. Thus, the pursuit of knowledge itself is the means. Then, what about all the other disciplines? They are all meant for preparing the mind so that this knowledge can take place. This is what is meant by purification of the mind or antahkarana shuddhi. Therefore, the other disciplines are all secondary means, whereas knowledge is the primary means. To say that these other disciplines are secondary is not to say that they have no place. The distinction to be understood is that these other disciplines are indirect means for moksha in that they prepare or purify the antahkarana, while the pursuit of knowledge is the direct means for the knowledge that is moksha. So all the sadhana that we do, yoga and sudarshan kriya and dhyana and sahaj and everything, are the secondary means. They are very, very important because they help in preparing the mind, preparing the antahkarana. But the primary means to gain moksha is jnana, is tapas, is jnana tapas. That is why he says, jnana tapasa putaha. They get purified by jnana tapas. Does everyone come back to Ishvara? Because Krishna uses the word bahavaha, many. Here, Arjuna could assume that only some people come back to Ishvara and others do not. The word bahavaha being plural can refer to any number of jivas, starting with 3. I wonder what that 3 is. 3 is, in Sanskrit, there are 3 numbers, that is singular, dual, and plural. And therefore, the plural indicates 3 and anything more than 3. We have ekavachan, dvivachan, and bahuvachan. So, of course, in English grammar, we have only singular and plural, but in Sanskrit, we have singular, dual, and plural. Therefore, anything more than 3 is considered plural. Bahavaha. That is why I think Swami Tapovan, Swami Chinmayananda's guru, he tells him he is very keen to spread this knowledge to the masses down. But his guru tells him, if you're able to get 3 people to listen to you, then you can go on and spread this knowledge. So he comes down comes down back from the Himalayas, and then Swami Chinmayananda, he stays in someone's house. So he gets exactly 3 people, I think. The people, the householders, the grahastas, 1 and 2, and the third person, because he wants to follow his teacher's advice, he brings in the house help also. And then these 3 people are the first ones to whom Swami Chinmayananda actually begins. And from there, he starts the Jnana Ganga. I guess if you people have not watched The Quest is a beautiful life story of Swami Chinmayananda. It's worth watching. That's a wonderful movie to watch, to get inspired. So bahavaha, the word bahavaha being plural can refer to any number of jivas starting with 3. The point here is that even if it is just 3, 1,000,000 or more, a finite number is implied. Arjuna may therefore have asked Krishna, why does he not allow everyone to come to him? To such a question, Krishna could have only have answered, I can only take them to me if I am separate from them, but I am them. If we were separate, perhaps there might be something I could do about it. But since they are not separate from me, what can I do? It is not a case of my having to bring them to me because I am already identical with them. There is nothing here that I have to do. As Ishvara, they can invoke me, and in whatever form they invoke me, I bless them. Whatever they desire, they get. Therefore, I am not to blame in this particular situation. I do not have any raga dveshas to fulfill in this matter, nor do I take names out of a hat every day to see that some people suffer and some remain happy, and so on. I do not follow any such rule. In this way, Krishna paves the way for the next section in which he explains how Ishvara is free from any kind of blame with reference to what happens in one's life. Otherwise, we would be left asking why Ishvara blesses one person and not another, and why he is so partial. I think we will stop here. We will do some reflection. It is 6, 7 here. We'll go to verse 11. Verse 10 took up a lot of time. We did,
No,
of course.
I didn't get that partiality. It was not clear to me. Why?
Because, see, he is not separate from them. For Ishvara, for Krishna, everyone is him. He does not have the other. So there is no question of him being partial, no. It is only the jiva, with respect to the jiva, with his limited knowledge and his misapprehension, he thinks he's separate from Ishvara. So there is nothing that Krishna has to do in being partial or impartial to people. He is Advaita. He is the one.
Yeah, the jiva only separates. So jiva,
The
has
jiva
to
separates. So therefore, the cosmic cycle is what decides how much blessings or suffering each one gets. It is our own doing. It is our own. We lay our blueprint of our karma because of our actions, because of our thoughts, because of our desires. It is not to Krishna is not to blame. If someone is blessed or someone is suffering, it is not because of Krishna. It is the way it is, the way it has to be. It is the cosmic cycle. That is why even when we say, oh, we should avoid saying, oh, God is. We keep saying this, no? We say Gurudev. What is that? Did this? Gurudev did that. Gurudev says, it had to come to you. Therefore, you got it. We give the term Gurudev, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong in saying that. You're feeling grateful, but actually speaking, in a very in the actual sense, it is not Gurudev or God or Krishna giving us. Although here, maybe we should. The karma phala data is Ishvara, no doubt. Whatever karma phala has to come to us, whether drishta or adrishta, will come to us. But Ishvara here is impartial in the sense he does not have any favoritism. He does not say, only this person I will give this, that person I will not give. It is all an interplay of our own karma and the karma phala.
Jai Gurudev, other day we were discussing about prayer, the significance of prayer we can get. That means, when we prayed, so divine has given us that, like that also we can presume, right?
Yeah. See, no doubt. See, that's why when we say Krishna is not the giver, it's actually not right to say Krishna is not the giver. Ishvara ultimately is the karma phala data, is the karma dhyaksha. He is the one who gives, in the sense, he's the one who sets the cosmic cycle in place, right? But we are responsible for our own the actions, consequences that we are going through.
Here we can think me and Krishna differently. When we put ourselves as a Krishna, if I'm a Krishna, if I've done something wrong, in that sense I'm saying, because even I have asked, like maybe 8-10 days back, this came. Even I asked this: if we are leading this life according to our karma, then how come Krishna is a karma phala data? This is our karma and our karma phala that we are having this life. Then how come Krishna come over here? That's because we think Krishna and me are different. That's why we think like that. Because if the Srishti happened because God thought that he should hide himself through himself from himself. That is Tirodhan. And this Maya is Rahu. Rahu in astrology, if you want to put it. So God himself, we are not separate from him. He himself hid from himself, through himself, from himself. And that was the veil of Maya. He hid himself. And the ultimate Ketu will give us the moksha. Rahu, between the two nodes, all the other grahas are there. Then the lifespan is there.
Right. See here, if you remember, in order to be a karma yogi versus being an ethical person, recognition of Ishvara is important. That is what we learned in chapter 3 and 2, wherein recognizing that Ishvara is the karma phala data and he's the karma dhyaksha is important for a karma yogi, because if not that, how will you take your consequences of the results of your action as Ishvara prasada? You will only remain an ethical person. You will only be a dharmic person. But when you are performing every action as yajna, to whom are you offering? You're offering every action of yours to the higher power, to the divine. And whatever is the result, you're taking it as if it's coming from the divine, as it's prasada from the divine. Then there is that element of bhakti that comes in there, isn't it? Otherwise, if you contrast a karma yogi to a dharmic person, an ethical person, who's an atheist, who does not believe in God, who does not believe in Ishvara, this person has got dry, his life is kind of dry. He's doing everything ethically, no doubt. But then he is not having the ability to let go of his raga dveshas. And also there is no element of bhakti in him. So he will remain an ethical person and he will continue in his cycle of punya, papa, and samsara. But if you require to be liberated, there is a karma yoga is important, because, and for karma yoga to be followed, you have to have the concept of Ishvara. So that, having said that, Ishvara is not partial. This whole paragraph comes in because Ishvara is, although he is the karma dhyaksha, it is because of our own do's and don'ts, likes and dislikes, whether we do our acts of omission, commission, is the karma, the punya, papa that we experience. So we are responsible. Ishvara is only set the cosmic cycle in motion. That is his adhyaksha. That's it. That is all his interference. The cycle goes on, and like for instance, when you sow a seed, it sprouts. That is the law of nature, law of creation. And when you sow a mango seed, only a mango tree, mango sapling comes out. You will not get a guava tree coming out of that. So that is the law of creation. So in that sense, Krishna, Bhagavan Ishvara, is not partial, but he is of course there. He is there. Ishvara is there. He is the one who is giving all the results of our actions. He's like the director of the movie. He's directing our whole life, the whole creation. That is why Gurudev says in one, he says, if I'm not the doer, then I'll go, if you go and commit some crime, like you've robbed someone, then he says, okay, then the police coming and catching you is also, then even there you have the non-doership then. So you cannot say, you cannot use non-doership for something and then take on doership for something else. So that therefore, when we keep saying, oh, because the danger is, for example, when Rishi Nitya Prajna passed away due to COVID, I guess several people had this, how come Guruji did not do anything when he knew it? That is it. That was how it had to be. Even if I remember Swami Sadyojata, when after he became a Swami or so, there was a atrocity that happened to his parents in back in Kerala. I think there was some big theft and a lot of things happened. So Gurudev being all-knowing, there was this question, how come he did not avert it? It is because everyone has to go through their karma. So that in that sense, Ishvara is impartial. You cannot blame Ishvara and say, how come you've blessed this person? How come you've not blessed that person? Not possible.
Yeah,
How
even
come?
he said, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Rina.
Even he has said the ownership of enjoyment or the suffering. Either you give it to God, then God is suffering or he's enjoying, or you take it on yourself. You're the enjoyer or you're the sufferer. You can't be saying that you will enjoy and God should suffer. No, you will enjoy also, suffer also, or put it on God. He is the enjoyer, he is the sufferer. But ultimately, it's the same, isn't it?
Yeah. So when we are faced with situations of why me, then we have to be awake to this knowledge that, there are people who get angry with God because why did he give this suffering to me? There's no harm in being angry, but then realize that it is the suffering is, you have brought it up on yourself. God is not sitting there and making some people suffer and some people enjoy.
Yeah, and this understanding I got only when I studied astrology. And here it is just a statement. Here you know actually what is happening. Like Google Map, she might say 20 kilometers away. But that's just a one statement. But here you will see the loops and corners and then the small alleys. All in details you'll get to know why it is happening, why you are suffering now, or why you might suffer now or later. These details you will get to know through astrology. It's not going to change your faith, nothing, but just the details you will get to know.
Right. So you can avoid the
Blame game.
Blame game, very good, very important, no? Blame game. And maybe you'll also be given upayas as to how to avoid some wrong turns or even some difficult stretches. There may be a stretch which is very rough terrain. How to circumvent that. Probably that is how astrology helps.
Yes, and if there is a big mountain, if you cannot move it, just don't keep banging your head on it. It's not going to happen. I mean, that also you'll be aware of. That's something. There is a wall. You can't keep banging on the wall because it's not going to open. The door, maybe just with one push, you can open. So, what things you can do with your effort, what cannot be, or some places you can jump over the things. These things, astrology will make you aware of. Some things cannot be changed, some things might change a little bit, some things in your hand, your free will. These things can be seen in astrology.
Yeah. And I think when you're faced with a mountain or a wall, that is where the prayer comes in, wherein this is how much you can do. And then prayer, when you pray to Lord, when you pray to the God, that in that act of surrender, the mountain will no longer remain as a mountain. You will get that inner strength that whatever has to happen will happen, and you'll come to that state of acceptance. So therefore, that mountain, when you contrast a person who prays to a person who does not pray, the person who prays has so much of inner strength that there is someone who's going to take care of me. The feeling that a child has when he's around the mother, when the mother's around him. Whereas a person who does not pray is left high and dry. No? So prayer is so important. So going back to this verse, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodhaha. So in order to come to this state of Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, it is important for us to let go of our binding desires. Desires themselves are not wrong. The desire for you to eat a masala dosa is not wrong. But the desire, if it's binding, saying, I will eat only masala dosa and nothing else, that becomes a binding desire. In China's own example, he would always want to give examples. He would give this example of masala dosa quite often. So if your stomach is full and you're passing through a restaurant and you have the smell of a fragrance of masala dosa, your stomach is already full, but then you still want to follow your raga there. That is one. And second is, you're in the house that day, there is upma as breakfast, and you don't like so much upma, but you want masala dosa. So holding on to your raga and saying, I will eat only this, that becomes a binding desire. So whatever is there, you eat and be happy with it. And like Bela very rightly pointed out, not just the quality of food, quantity of food is very important. And through jnana tapasa, through swadhyaya, through manana, shravana, manana, nididhyasana, then your mind gets purified, your intellect gets purified, and in that purified mind, knowledge dawns. And then you become Krishna, you become Ishvara, or you're just one with Ishvara. The Jiveshwara Bheda is lost. Yeah. Does anyone else want to share anything? We have 5 minutes. I wanted to share this. when I was reading this thing yesterday, I was actually in a state. I have applied for leave for to go attend Shivratri and the advanced course, and then I'm in a particular situation in my hospital. So I had a little query whether that will be granted, because one of my colleagues has put in his papers. We're just two of us. So I was just laughing and looking back at my own state of mind, because my raga was, this has to be done. I want this to be, I want this to happen. I wanted my leave has already been sanctioned. But then there is this lurking fear that maybe it will not, maybe they'll retrieve the leave approval and things like that. So I was just laughing at myself and my state of mind when I was reading that. See, very often we held on to that binding desire. So I was thinking, so what should be my frame of mind? Does not matter. In case for whatever reason my leave is disapproved, I should still be able to be in a state of equilibrium and not get so upset about it. So then today when I checked yesterday when I checked with my HR and I told her, see, I've applied for it way back in November. She went on to say, now you're just two of you. Can you not take back your leave? And I said, see, I've already applied and I've already paid up for my course. So there's no way I can retrieve it. Then she said, fine, then no problem, we'll go ahead. So, I mean, I just thought I'll share this little state of mind that I was in yesterday. So the raga, the dvesha, and the fear, it all fell in place very, very nicely yesterday.
If you start observing, there are many things day by day today. We have to just be witness. Then you will laugh at yourself.
Correct.
Many times.
No, but it would be fun to see when the things fell in place. When they don't fall in place, it would be very interesting to see what would be our mind, condition of our mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. The most of the time it is our own mind's craving and aversion only. And we think that it is God's will.
Yeah.
That also, mind is very tricky.
Yeah, when it is positive, only then we remember it as a miracle. But when it becomes negative also, we have to take it into stride. So that becomes a very nice exercise.
And that is the tapas, no? The tapas is to be able to take pairs of opposites and stay with that unpleasantness. The problem is we quickly want to remove that unpleasantness and get back to that zone of comfort. But going through that grind, that is why tapas is such an important sadhana.
Dvandhatita.
Yeah.
Dvandhatita we have to do.
And what we are doing in this Vadhyaya, listening to knowledge, listening to the Shastra, is actually one of the greatest tapas.
I'd like to share about the advanced course that I just took in a rural area. I had a lot of people with a lot of physical ailments in their body, thyroid problems, Parkinson's, etc. And we had organized to take them with us and bring them back. So when we were there, we reached around 11:30 in the night. And then we were setting up the hall, just 2-3 of us, till 1:30 in the night. But the people who had, with all these ailments, who were their participants, they had gone to sleep. But they didn't want to come early in the morning for the yoga session. This thing like 7 o'clock, then 6:45, something like that. Second day, I put my foot down, 6:30, everybody in the hall, sort of. And then and there were issues, challenging issues, like the geezers would trip. If all of them put the geezers on together, We have this kind of problems in rural areas. Loading takes place and geysers trip and all that. But like they would see me in the kitchen making hot water. Everybody's having early morning hot water before the yoga session starts. Drinking water. So all those kind of thing. I would light up the gas, put the water for them. So all that discipline that we inculcate on the last day, like, I put my foot down, 6:30 means 6:30, and then 2 hours of yoga, finally ending with meditation. Like, so by the time they finished, and then they would go for seva and all. Yesterday, when they did their experience sharing, every one of them says, "Oh, first day it was so painful, yoga and all that." And then yesterday, everybody was sharing, and they were even crying, like, "Oh, you showed us the way as to how we should be leading our lives." I also talked about relations, how to, a lot of things, karma yoga, dharma ke marg pe chalna, all those kind of things that I talked about on the last day, Guru grace, gratitude and all. So at that time, like when they did their experience sharing, they literally, so many of them cried. They came to share their experiences. They cried actually. And just that discipline is so important. Why you can't get up? It's okay, it's winter, so why you can't get up and come for the yoga session? And then, then all these situations that we face, the challenging situations, they just disappear. I mean, the mountain no more remains a mountain, you surmount it.
Yeah, so beautiful. It is like yattadagre vishamiva pariname mrutopamam. So all the sattvic sukha is initially, it seems very difficult, but ultimately it is sukha. Yeah, very nice. Thank you for sharing, Persiji. I think we'll wind up here today. My alarm went 2 minutes ago. We'll wind up today, and we'll take up verse number 11 tomorrow. Om Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.